Let's talk some Springsteen. Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. Here it is, the artist of the week, Bruce Springsteen. Hopefully you were maybe able to get that from the clue. I think the clue was a little tough, but there's the clue we had in the community tab here on the channel. We're trying to use that community tab a little bit more. Putting some polls and maybe clues for upcoming videos. But this was the clue, the pony. If you pull back, zoom out from that, you will see that that is on the marquee of the famous Asbury Park club, the Stone Pony, which is very much associated with Springsteen, where Springsteen, kind of, I don't know quite where he got his start, but it was made legendary by those early shows with Springsteen. So here we are. We're going to be looking at Springsteen's 21 studio albums. We'll be ranking them as we usually do, worst to best, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. And it just gives us a chance to talk about these records and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's a lot of fun. We will be including in this ranking the brand new one that came out last Friday, Only the Strong Survive, his Soul Covers album. You'll see where, at least so far, I put that in the grand scheme of things. So, that'll be included. And we're going to do something a little bit different here. We'll probably be doing this in the future with some of these longer discographies. We're going to be breaking this up. So you're going to get a treat this week. You're going to get 3 videos instead of 2, like we usually do, because we got this one today, which is going to be the first part of the discography. I kind of break it up into more digestible pieces, right? And so we're going to start going from 21 to 11 in this video, and then the second half of this one we're going to publish tomorrow, and that'll be 10 through 1, the top 10. Okay, and then Thursday we will come back and address live Springsteen, which is its own animal, and official live releases, archival live releases, and straight up bootlegs, and that's a whole different discussion. So we'll save that. So that's what we're going to be doing. So real quick, Bruce Springsteen, one of my very favorite artists. I've grown up with Springsteen. He companion his music, to me throughout my life, the good times and the bad. And so I love his work, although it's not going to be a total love fest. I do think some of his albums are not good. So we're going to talk about those too, So, I'm not blind to it. I don't think. I'm going to try to be objective as much as I can. But I do love his music. Yeah, I think he's one of a kind, one of the great songwriters, really, and with one of the great bands too, the E Street Band. So we'll talk about those guys as we go. Yeah, I think Bruce is an albums artist. There's some compilations out there. I don't think any of them really come close to capturing it. I mean, there of course is the greatest hits that I think has sold quite a bit. This is 18 tracks. The last 4 tracks are new songs that he tacked on in the mid '90s when he put this out. They don't, they take up valuable space and they don't stand up, to the greats. So really, if you take those off, it's 14 hits, 14 tracks. I don't think this is worth having. I mean, it actually leaves off some pretty significant hits, and it just doesn't give you any really sort of idea and scope. If you're gonna get a compilation, the essential Bruce Springsteen is much better. Double disc. You got 30 tracks on here, so it's able to cover a lot more ground. And of course, what enticed someone like me, who has everything anyway, is a special edition, had a 3rd disc with a bunch of rarities. So yeah, I'm going to buy that. Speaking of rarities, Springsteen has a ton of stuff in the vaults. We're going to, as we go through, we'll talk about, he started to release a lot of this stuff. I don't have it with me, but the tracks, 4 CD box set. We can put that up there. Is all that is stuff from the vaults, B-sides, and all that, and that didn't even come close to covering everything. So as we go, we'll try and kind of talk about some of that stuff too. Well, all right. Let's get into it. So, like I said, this video we're going to be hitting 21 through 11. So at number 21, it's not the new one. No, it is in fact 2009's Working on a Dream. Something had to be at the bottom. I put this one. Everything from the, Velvet Bruce cover here. It just doesn't work for me. It Bruce sometimes kind of skirts that line between his authenticity and parody, right? And yeah, which I guess can happen to most iconic songwriters, if they're around long enough. And this one falls into parody. Uh, from the opener, it's like 8 minute or so Outlaw Pete that tries to, I think, in vain recreate that 70s epics. Jungle Land, it is not. Um, to what I think is probably the worst song in his entire catalog, Queen of the Supermarket. That does come across as a straight up parody, of sort of the Springsteen tropes, and it's just awful. And I don't know, there's not much else on here, at least for me, that to really lend itself to listening, you know, over and over again. I want one bright spot. I think Life Itself is good. That's a nice kind of hidden gem there. The Wrestler, his tune from that great film that was actually, it's tacked on here as a bonus track. Probably one of the better songs on here. But well, there you go. Something had to be at the end. All right, number 20. I do put, at least for now, the brand new one. Only the Strong Survive. Now, on Saturday I posted a pretty quick review, so if you want to go back and kind of watch that, if you want a fuller review of this, I don't hate this. I don't dislike it. It's just real quick. In case you haven't seen that review, you don't know much about it because it just came out on Friday. It's a covers album, soul covers, mainly kind of Motown, Philly soul, that type of thing. And like I said in the review, for a songwriter of his caliber, I'm not that interested in a covers album, especially here where he doesn't really take the songs in any new direction. The music pretty much recreates the music of the originals, and he just kind of have his voice on top, of the songs. And I don't doesn't do anything really. I mean, for me, at least. All right, moving on. Let's see, number 19. We have his other covers album, We Shall Overcome. The Seeger Sessions, where he does a whole album of Bob Seger. No, I'm kidding. Pete Seeger. Um, and kind of older traditional folk songs. And this, I think, is a little more successful than the new one. I think this type of music is a little bit more in his wheelhouse. I think the band he gathered a pretty large band together, and it's pretty exuberant, acoustic, kind of Mumford and Sons, exuberant, acoustic, kind of Irish inflected in a lot of ways. Was good. It's good, but again, it's covers, yeah, and I'm interested in hearing his original music a lot more. There was a live album that we can discuss in the live video, live in Dublin, where he takes this band on the road. And it's a much more interesting album because he brings a lot of his own original songs into the set list, but gives it this treatment. And that, where he kind of transforms his own songs. And that's interesting. But this itself, I don't think, is all that interesting. But I do think it's better than Only the Strong Survive. All right. Getting into, let's see, that was 19, so 18. 18 and 17, we kind of talk about together. Probably guess what's coming, right? At 18, I have 1992's Human Touch, and at 17, 1992's Lucky Town. These were infamously or famously released on the same day, right? The story so he had, you got to admire this. Going into the 90s, he felt that the E Street Band had kind of run its course, and he wanted to try just playing with some other musicians, maybe to spark something. He moves out to Los Angeles, and he puts together a group of crack session people, but they are session people, kind of anonymous in some ways. He doesn't have the same connection with these musicians, and the songwriting is not that great. So he works on this for a while, and this is probably his most straightforward pop album. And the sound, even in 1992 when it came out, was already kind of dated. I mean, the synthesizers, it's very, very overproduced in some ways. And so he goes back into the studio when this is pretty much done, and he wants to record one or two more songs, and then he gets inspired and writes a whole new batch of songs. They're much more kind of organic and guitar based, and that becomes Lucky Town, and he puts them both out. Now, I think even he would admit, and the he called the 90s his lost decade. I don't think he's wrong, but I think even he would admit this would probably be a pretty good album, taking the best tracks and combining them onto a single album instead of these. Now, it's not all bad. We can take Human Touch here first. I think that title track it's a great pop song. 57 channels. I know a lot of people really hate. I actually don't mind that. I think that's kind of groovy. Uh, yeah, that's it. Nothing else on here really stands out. Now here, I think Better Days, Lucky Town, Local. It's a pretty strong opening trio. If I Should Fall Behind, I think is probably the only song from these that sort of remained in his set lists beyond this tour. The Big Muddy is cool, but yeah. I mean, this works a little bit better. Again, it's kind of more his sound, I think. But I think you could have made a good record taking. This is 14 tracks and this is 10 tracks. So whittling these 24 tracks down to a good 10, 11 track album could be really good. But he didn't do that. All right. Moving on to number, let's see, 16. Now, this is the last of the CDs, and then we'll get into the vinyl. But I do have 2012's Wrecking Ball. All right. Now we're getting into some pretty good material. This I think suffers from what a lot of his 21st century records. It's too long. I think if you trimmed some stuff and kept the best and made a tighter, more concise record, it would be better. But there's actually some really good stuff on here. The opener, "We Take Care of Our Own," is a good solid rocker for the 21st century. The title track, I think, is awesome. That's really, I think, inspiring, emotional track. Um, Kind of interesting. It was written. Now I'm forgetting the official name. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not from the East Coast, so I don't remember the actual name of the stadium. But I think it was a stadium where the NFL team, the Giants, played forever, and they were tearing that stadium down. And so that song was Bruce played shows at that stadium over the years too, right? And so it's actually a really nice kind of emotional tribute to a building, to a large stadium. But I don't know, it works. It's really good, actually. I think Rocky Ground on here is good. That's actually just Bruce is sort of expanding his sound a little bit. There's some programming on there, but there's actually like a little kind of kind of rap in there. Now Bruce doesn't do the rapping. I think is a good thing. I forget. I don't remember who it was. I think it was a female, but it actually kind of works, because it's not like kind of over the top or anything. It kind of flows with it. That I think, that's admirable. As Bruce sort of moving into you know some newer sounds, and I think he does it well. Land of Hope and Dreams is a great Springsteen anthem. I think, am I right on that? That the Clarence Clemens' sax solo on this Land of Hope and Dreams is the last, his last recording on a studio track, before his death. I think that is the case. But anyway, adds some emotional resonance. Again, that being said, there's still a bit of filler on here too, in my view. But we're getting better. We're getting better. All right, let's move into some of the vinyl now, or vinyl from here on out. Where were we? 15. Number 15, we have Devils and Dust. Now, this was 2005. Now, this is one of these records that it starts off really strong. I think the Devils and Dust, All the Way Home, Reno, which is pretty risque, but about his meeting with a prostitute. Long time coming. Really strong opening, salvo of songs. I think it kind of fades in the second half, which is why it's down a little bit on this list. This was seen as sort of the third in a loose, they call it trilogy, but it's not like you put them together, on purpose. But starting with Nebraska, and then Ghost of Tom Joad, and then this. So these acoustic based, storytelling type songs, but with a little bit more band backing than, well, definitely more than Nebraska, because Nebraska didn't have any, but even more than Ghost of Tom Joad, which I really like. I like that sound where it's kind of Bruce and his acoustic guitar up front, storytelling, but he's got some good backing to give some variety to the music. Again, just my only complaint is I think it sort of falls off in the second half. Again, a little too long, maybe. But it's good. It's good. All right. Speaking of Ghost of Tom Joad, here it is in the 14 slot. 1995, Ghost of Tom Joad. This one is frustrating to me because the lyrics are stunningly good. Just incredible storytelling, which is great. The lyrics are reproduced here, in the inner sleeve here. I'm going to tell you this. This is more interesting as a read than actually listening to it. Because to me, where this record really lets down, it's in the production. Um, there's not a whole lot of like strong melodies or anything like that. It's really subdued to the point of just where some of the music is hardly even there. I understand he wanted to really get these stories, these incredible lyrics, front and center. But if you're putting out an album of music, man, you gotta have some intriguing music too. And his guitar is so quiet in the mix, and sometimes he's just kind of faintly finger picking. You can hardly hear, and like I said, there's not a lot of the music isn't real hooky. A lot of catchy stuff. The mix is so kind of, again, subdued and muddy. It's just, to me, it's a shame because I think these are some of the most impressive song lyrics I've ever read. It's just you kind of wish the music, at least close to lived up to these great songs. These great lyrics at least. Yeah, I think could have been a lot better. All right. At number 13, I have, let's see, 2014's High Hopes. Now, this is kind of an interesting record in that it was a really kind of a hodgepodge. I don't know, sort of his physical graffiti, right? Where he kind of had some of these, several of these songs that didn't make records over the past decade or so. and he just kind of collected them and put them on this. Although it doesn't sound like a comp. I mean, it actually kind of flows and plays, like a full record. Man, I really kind of consider it that. It plays that way. There's some real highlights on here. Now, at least half of these tracks, maybe more than half, feature Tom Morello, of Rage Against the Machine. Springsteen and Morello, good friends, kind of mutual admiration. And Morello, sometimes it's overdone with some of his guitar histrionics, if you know his style of playing. But I think he does add a lot of stuff to some of these tracks. Uh, the Wall is, although he's not on the Wall. The Wall is great, where Springsteen sort of takes the Vietnam Wall as this metaphor, and it's really really good. Um, but to me, the two highlights are some older songs. One is American Skin, 41 Shots, which was a pretty controversial song for Springsteen. He wrote, when did that come out? Kind of late 90s, actually. Had it on a live album, never put a studio version out, as far as I can tell, except until here. And I think it's an amazing version of that song. Tom Morello's guitar really does soar on that. It was real biting. And then Ghost of Tom Joad, the title track to that song. Live, Bruce had been playing it with a lot more muscle, and a lot of guitar, and he puts that in a stronger version on here again with Tom Morello doing some guitar stuff, and those two really stand out. I think this is a great listen. I really enjoy this, even though it is technically just sort of a hodgepodge of leftover tracks over about a decade. All right, moving to number 12 is, well, the previous one before he put out this one this Friday, 2020's Letter to You. Oh, so booklet in there, some lyrics and photos, and put that aside. But yeah, Letter to You. Now, I remember some people were joking, this, these shots of Bruce in the snow, make it look like a Christmas album or something, but it's not. It's not. It's actually a really good record. Um, it's kind of a rumination on getting old, on death. Um, but it's not super depressing either, except because the music is really strong. It was a nice, kind of getting back with the E Street Band. Um, he had hit kind of a writer's block, and he wasn't even sure he was going to ever sort of be able to write again. And then something kind of unclogged it, and these songs kind of flooded out. There's two really good songs here that to me stand out: Last Man Standing and Ghosts, which both are him kind of looking back at one of his very first bands. I mean, before the E Street Band, before the Bruce Springsteen Band, even before Steel Mill. I think it's looking about the Castiles. I think it was like one of his very first band when he was a teenager. And the only other surviving member of that band had recently died, when Bruce was recording this. And it really kind of struck him, so that they're like literally, as the title of the song, Last Man Standing, at least with that band, and then Ghosts. I think those are really powerful songs of him just sort of looking back, at people that are no longer with us, and the music that they made. Now, also very notable on here are three trunk songs, three songs dating back from the early 70s that never made it on records. It's really cool that he kind of pulled those and resurrected those. And you can tell the lyrics, they're just so jumbled and you know almost stumbling over over themselves. There's it's like his early 70s writing style. It's so cool that he kind of brings those back. Two of those three I think are awesome. I think Janie Needs a Shooter really works. My favorite track on the whole album is If I Was the Priest. Man, I listen to that over and over. I love that. It's so great. The only one that I don't think works all that well is Song for Orphans, but it's not bad. But man, If I Was the Priest and Janie Needs a Shooter Great, great songs. I'm so glad he resurrected for this. This is awesome. I mean, this is a real solid record. It's great. All right. Well, number 11, the last one for this part, this video for today, and we'll get to the top 10 tomorrow, right? Another really frustrating album. This is 2002's The Rising at number 11. I say frustrating because there is a 5-star record in here. Really is. It's too long. If he could trim 4 to 5, I don't know, 4 tracks, which I think are kind of filler, and resequence it. I mean, you're putting The Rising, which is a just screams to be an opener, and of course, and he opened his shows on this tour with that, as he should. But you're gonna cram that, the third to last song on this thing? I mean, no, that should be front and center, opening the record. Um, yeah. So seriously, if you trim 4 songs or so, resequence this. This is a 5-star classic in my view. But as it stands, it just has some amazing songs on it, but overall is somewhat flawed, I think. Um, of course, this was his response to 9/11. Now, it's not a blatant response. It's a lot of it's kind of shaded and subtle, but you could just kind of feel that event all over this record. And I don't know. This record helped a lot of people kind of deal with what was going on. Of course, the song "The Rising" I think is a modern classic of his. The song that does open the record is awesome too. "Lonesome Day" is great. Love that song. What else is really good on here? "Worlds Apart" I think is a good experiment that brings in some world music, but it really does work. It's a great kind of story song about a U.S. soldier falling in love with a woman in the Middle East, and so the complications there. What else? "You're Missing" is this beautiful song. "My City of Ruins," which closes it. It's kind of interesting. He actually wrote that song prior to 9/11, but it so fits, post 9/11. It sort of became about that, even though he'd written the song prior. I mean, so like I said, you have the foundation here of a classic album, but it's just there's just some filler on here too that pulls it down a notch. All right. Well, there we go. We have made it through. Was it 21 through 11? And so tomorrow we will post a video on the top 10. Yeah, well, I got some stuff I want to show you. I'll save it for tomorrow's video. We've gone on enough here. So please do subscribe if you're enjoying enjoying these videos. If you don't like Springsteen, sorry. We will move on to someone else next week. Okay, but please do subscribe. It really helps us out. It kind of lets us do what we want to do here, kind of long term, hopefully. Like the videos, hit the bell for notifications, and we will see you tomorrow for numbers 10 through 1 of my Springsteen rankings. See you then.